And I said, this is a scandal much like that. That if I told you these things in like 1966, you wouldn't believe it. But now it's considered to be part of American history. And I said, this is a similar type of scandal. It's so implausible, and it was so immaculately covered up that you can only get a post-mortem on a story like this. You can never really report on a story like this in real time.
Yeah, 15 key players in the scandal, including Franklin Committee investigator Gary Cardori. His private plane was blown out of the sky July 11, 1990, but 15 key players all died.
There were a number of mysterious deaths, and I get into Gary Cardori's death pretty... I mean, Gary Cardori was flying back from Chicago. He was flying to Nebraska, and I've got it from 5 different sources that Gary Cardori came by pictures when he was in Chicago, which pedophilic pictures, compromised pictures, which really would have blown this story wide open. I mean, pictures were these grand juries that were conducted to cover up this pedophile network called it a hoax, but had Cardori lived and brought these pictures back to Nebraska, then there is no way that this could have been called a hoax, and I think it really would have seriously jeopardized the Bush administration, the first Bush administration.
Well, and this is kind of the, I don't know how far you want to go with this, but this is kind of the MO of the Bush family, plane accidents, and we've recorded quite a few over the years. Mr. Cardori's brother, Gary, had said that he had merely come to possess the key piece of evidence, a book of addresses and phone numbers that was so damaging that if they knew they had it, they'd kill him. And then he was...
Actually, I think it was pictures that he came by.
Okay.
I've got it from 5 different sources.
I mean, these people are willing to stop at nothing to keep this quiet. But again, they have this advantage that good people have a hard time believing that this is actually going on. You know, on the media, I want to ask you this question. You know, how many children disappear in the U.S. every year? But in the media always focuses on one sensational case. Where's Casey? For months and months and months, while ignoring and subverting the extent of the problem. You've done this research. I have numbers back from several years ago because it's hard to get updated numbers. How many children just disappear in the country every year?
Well, there's supposedly only generally 300 cases of stranger abductions. But there's a lot of kids that seem to fall through the cracks. I mean, thousands. And I find it very strange that the FBI can tell you how many cars were stolen in the United States last year, but they can't even begin to extrapolate how many children went missing.
I've heard that number up into the hundreds of thousands. Of course, some of those could be legitimate cases, runaways, and whatnot. I mean, again, we have to really fully investigate this, Nick, but it could be much bigger of a number.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard conflicting numbers, but definitely tens of thousands I've heard that number kicked around quite a bit.
Something similar happened in Belgium with Marc Dutroux. I don't know if you want to cover some of that, but this has happened all over the world, hasn't it, Nick? Something very similar to the Franklin cover-up.
The Dutroux case was very similar to Franklin in that Dutroux said that he was part of a large pedophile network, and investigators started investigating it, and then all of a sudden their investigation hit like a brick wall. And there were some people in Belgian law enforcement that said that there was no pedophile network, but then there were 300,000 Belgians marched through the streets protesting what they thought was the cover-up of a large pedophile network. And also, there's been power broker pedophile networks attached to Portugal and
Italy,
Venezuela,
yeah.
I mean, and Mexico. And I've heard one being basically uncovered in England, but there isn't the substantial proof that there is in these.
Well, sure. I mean, Russia, it happens all over the world, and the poorer you find a nation, the more susceptible they seem to be to this pedophile sex slavery network. It just seems to be that there is a premium on American children. Maybe they pay more, or it's more damning. I don't know, but that's what we're concerned about, and it is about the children, and this story has to be told. I had John DeCamp on the show years ago to talk about this, and I'd done a lot of research on this since. And one of the things that always bothered me, I don't know how much you looked into this, and I haven't had a chance to read everything you've written on this yet, but that he selected the head of the inquiry to be William Colby. You talked about the CIA being involved in this. We all know about Colby, a 50-year veteran of intelligence operations, started with OSS, ended up with the CIA, helped to run the Phoenix program, Operation Gladio. I'm not picking that guy to head the investigation if I want to get to the truth. Why? That bothers me. What have you found out about it?
Well, actually, the legislators thought about Colby. There were 7 people on the Franklin Committee that were investigating these allegations, and 7 Nebraska legislators. And Colby was shot down by a narrow margin of 4-3. They felt that once the legislators that voted against Colby being hired by the Franklin Committee, they felt that once CIA, always CIA. And they thought that Colby would come in and cover it up. Now, I have talked they did hire Colby after Gary Caradori's plane blew up. The Franklin Committee did hire William Colby to look into Gary Caradori's very strange death. And here's where it gets a little fuzzy, because I've talked to people who talked to Colby, who said that Colby told them that he felt Gary Caradori was murdered. But yet, Colby was completely unwilling to voice that publicly. So, I'm really unsure if Colby would have been the right man. I mean, his death was very strange.
Yes, it was.
And, but I don't know if Colby's death was... I would assume that it probably wasn't connected to Franklin, or Franklin could have been just one piece in... I
thought it might be more connected to the drug smuggling than that, but his death was suspicious. He might have been trustworthy on some level. It just looks to me, with all due respect, it looks to me like a bait and switch. It's like putting Kissinger in charge of the 9/11 Commission. You know that's not going to fly, and then we get Lee Hamilton, who does a pretty good job covering everything up. All right. We're here with Nick Bryant today. His great book is out. It's also on Trine Day. 2 Trine Day interviews today. The Franklin Scandal, a story of Powerbrokers, child abuse, and betrayal. We'll come right back with Nick right after this. Stay tuned. Deadline Live. Yes, we are back. Thank you for joining us. Jack Blood, your radio gun, AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Nick Bryant is our guest today. His new book is so explosive. This is something everybody has to read, and there's a lot of documented, investigative, updated information in it. The Franklin Scandal, History of Power Broking, Child Abuse, and Betrayal. It's nasty stuff, but we got to know about it. TrineDay.net has this, TRINE, TrineDay.net, 800-556-2012. I'm really enjoying the book, Nick. I've studied this for years.
The book hasn't been published yet.
Well, I got a copy, or I got to some advanced material.
Oh, okay.
So, but I want to tell people about this because I've been investigating this for years, Nick, and from what I can tell, you're adding a lot to this, and it's really important.
I've spent, like I said, nearly 7 years on this. I've traveled well over 30,000 miles, and I've been able to find victims who have never come forward, and I've been able to get people to talk who have never talked. So, and actually I've been able to acquire documents that have never been acquired. So I'll be adding a lot to the story. John DeCamp was a good first start at the Franklin story, but I think ultimately, I've had a lot more time to look at